Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Trippett. I am known as the Front Porch Conservative. I sometimes go by the title of the Beau in the Chapeau. On occasion, I'm called the Fine Fella in the Fedora, and sometimes I am referred to as the Wise Guy in the Wide Brim. And you are here tonight for Chattin on the Porch, a live stream conversation where I get the chance to sit down and talk with some really interesting people that have definitely got a lot of things to say and bring unique perspective to the world in which they inhabit. And tonight I am honored to have a really fabulous guest. We are on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we are on Twitter. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, send out a Gab, send out a Gettr, send out a Truth Social, wherever you may be on social media. Bless your hearts. Thank you for everything you're doing to support this little endeavor, which is one of these days going to be a big old endeavor. And as I say, we're letting everybody settle into the room. Let's see who we've got so far. Yes, let us party indeed. And the gentleman that I have here tonight is definitely a party animal of a unique brand. And we'll get to that momentarily. Like I say, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. So going to be a good night. Good evening, Professor. The professor is in the house. Christian Watson is here. Good to have you here, sir. And we'll start dropping the volume on this music, and we will get this thing a-rolling. I have to give a thank you to my good buddy Mike Harlow, the High Harlot himself, who introduced me to my next guest. And this is going to be a slightly different conversation, but I think one that's beneficial. In these times in which we find ourselves, which tend to be extremely divisive, I think there's a perspective that is lost, and that is that you can agree to disagree, and you can also find yourself being able to stand with someone even though you may not agree with them on everything and they might not agree with you on everything. And that brings me to my guest. The gentleman that I'm about to bring on is an individual who is trying to do his dead level best, in his words, to resurrect common sense. And that leads him to his uniquely titled channel and his uniquely titled moniker. Ladies and gentlemen, the Electronic Front Porch is honored to host Lutch, otherwise known as the Indian Jesus.
Hello.
Lutch, how you doing tonight?
Doing very, very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure to have you here, sir. Yeah, I was watching that stream where you had Mike Harlow on as a guest, and I kept saying to myself, I really like this guy. I have got to have a conversation. No, I mean, in all sincerity, I've got to have a conversation with him, because the more I kept digging into your channel and the more I kept finding things like, yeah, we really need to have a talk, because I think the audience is going to realize we're going to come to the same place from two different perspectives. And in doing so, there's a lot to be learned. Most of my audience knows this. I think your audience knows this, but I think the conversation that we could have tonight goes a long way toward hopefully building some bridges between some sides that normally don't get together too often anymore. So
Definitely.
yeah, so let's see who all is here so far. We have Mr. Dylan C. How are you, sir? Great to have you. Miss Leah. Up in Connecticut. She is here and always ready. Couple of folks from your channel, it looks like, if I remember these good.
Soil to soul. Welcome.
If I remember these good folks correctly. So yeah, looks like we're going to have a really, really fun little crowd here. So I will start off with, as I am often want to do with my guests, tell me about your background. Where'd you grow up? Tell me about high school. Tell me about college. Tell me about your influences. And then I want to get into some questions that come out of an introductory video that you have on your YouTube channel. So with that, I give you the floor.
All right. So again, I am Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. And yeah, I mean, I guess if we go all the way back to the beginning, I was born into the Catholic Church to immigrant parents. I'm a first generation American. And I was pretty shy most of most of my childhood. And I found a solace kind of in like the punk rock music, metal, that area. And that was kind of my wheelhouse, especially going through high school. So I spent a lot of my weekends going to, basement shows and stuff like that. And I actually, because I had immigrant parents and I wasn't going to get away with drinking and doing drugs anyway, it happened that being straight edge was very, very cool at the time. So I figured, oh yeah, I'll claim to be a straight edge. Now then, of course, a couple of years later, I ended up in college and doing this and doing that. I'm like, oh, I kind of like this stuff a little bit. So that was a pretty transformational period for me, because I went from somebody who was a straight edge Christian to an atheist pothead, and then and further. I did have a little dabble with addiction in those times, and then I think the time I spent away from religion, but finding those what I should replace it with, which is something I find that a lot of people don't do who are who leave religion. The time that I spent really showed me that I can build a moral structure that I can work through without adhering to any dogma or any religion. And at this point, I'm still not really into politics at all. I told the story all the time that it was my freshman year in college, and I'm walking back from my friend's dorm to my dorm, and there's a bunch of people. It's a brisk fall night, and everybody's outside celebrating. I'm like, what's going on? Walk inside. Apparently, that was the night that we had our first Black president. So I was just I had no idea about anything. I was still, into drugs for a little while, got out of that, and then figured, oh, there's my co-host Morty here. And so eventually I was like, all right, I'm getting older. I'm starting to be a real person. Maybe I should pay attention to politics. And I thought it would be smart to, pay attention to not only MSNBC, but CNN and Fox News to get the full story. And obviously that's going to lead you down a bad road. And my first and only vote that I've ever cast was, unfortunately, for Hillary Clinton. They had fully turned me into a never Trumper. And, I was a Bernie bro, but obviously that wasn't an option. And I didn't feel like I had any options aside from Hillary. But after that, when, the mainstream media was saying you have to vote for Hillary, otherwise Trump is going to make the world end. And then Trump wins and the world doesn't end. And that's when I really started, questioning things in the same way that I was like, okay, I was told that Republicans are bad, liberals are good. But I was also told that Christians were right and atheists were bad. And so, just that kind of thinking led me to really, whenever it's something new, to come to the starting point of I know nothing. I know nothing, and the only thing that I am willing to claim is something that I can prove. I have a tattoo on my arm that I live by. It says, believe nothing except that anything is possible. It's very skeptical in the sense that I'm not going to believe anything except that whatever you're saying might be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So about a year and a half ago, I started the channel to try to spread this kind of message, that exactly what you're talking about, that we don't always have to agree on the same things, but we can come together and talk about our differences. And even if we continue to have those differences politically, we can still be on the same team. And that brings us to the Front Porch Conservative.
Oh, thank you, sir. As I was going through that 6-minute intro video, there's a number of things in there that I found to be very interesting. You describe yourself as a secular conservative. If someone if you drop that comment on anybody, me or anybody else, and someone looks back at you and says, what exactly does that mean? Because conservatism to a lot of people, or at least a significant portion of people, is built on a foundation of Judeo-Christian ethics. Mm-hmm. And you've said, and we'll get to this later on, that you're not unfriendly to that moral structure upon which modern conservatism is largely built. Not totally, but for a large number of people, it's built that way. Mm-hmm. But you describe yourself as a secular conservative. What is that exactly, as opposed to its equal opposite, the Judeo-Christian conservative?
So it just simply means that I don't have a religion. I don't have a dogma. I don't follow any faith. The values that happen to show up in Christian, the Judeo-Christian values themselves, I think they're good values. I just, especially coming from the church, I just don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that there's a God. I could be wrong. I believe that I could be wrong, but I don't have any, in all my days, all my searching, I haven't found any reason to believe that there is a God. I certainly haven't found a reason to stop looking or to think that I know that there's no God, but I'm still in the I don't know. So that's all that really means, is that I don't use the religious aspect
Okay.
of anything when it comes into my political beliefs.
Okay. But here's my next question, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but family, community, grace, tradition, merit, capitalism.
The
Would
American
you
identity.
would you say that these are the ideals that form the basis of your secular conservatism, or are there other influences? Or maybe here's the better question: who were the thinkers that influenced you, either personally, politically, or both, that got you to where you are in secular conservatism?
So I mean, absolutely, Christianity and the Bible is a huge part of that.
Okay.
I will never deny that. But
Okay.
there's also, people like philosophers like Kierkegaard or John Paul
Mm,
Sartre and stuff like that. I didn't I didn't do like a deep dive in college, but that's where I was introduced to some of these people. And then later on, when the I don't know if you guys are familiar with the new atheist movement with with like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, people like that. They had, even though they were a lot more antagonistic to religion than I am now and want to be. It was important for me to be able to see those ideas out there so that I could say that okay, you've got something there. I want to pull it back half a step and say that the Christians got it mostly right, but so I'm going to stick with it. I just don't believe this last part.
okay. All right. Fair enough. You make a statement, and I found this to be extremely interesting. We can have the conservative team to a lot of people. We can open the conservative team to a lot of people who ought to be there already.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. In your estimation, why hasn't this happened yet?
God. More
Really?
specifically, people talking about God in a way that is, frankly, unnecessary. If you so my whole thing is that, like, if we're conservatives, using the term broadly, then it
Okay.
means that politically we have this position. So if I got here from moral philosophy and whatever, and you got here from the Bible, then great. Like, there's no issue. And
Okay.
so the when there are people who will act as if, well, I don't trust you because you don't believe in God, or the this is the right way and you have to do it this way, it pushes people away. And so there might be these default liberals, like I call myself a 2015 liberal, because, like I said, I wasn't really paying attention, and the default was just like, okay, yeah, the Republicans are the religious bigots and the liberals are the normal people. That was the idea that I think most people who weren't into politics had. And that even though the parties have definitely changed a lot, I think that mentality is still there. And so if you're not really paying attention, you're still going to think like, okay, Republicans are bad, so by default I'll just go with the liberals. And you start to see people going with stuff like gender ideology and go down the list when they don't really think about it that much. And if you
Mm,
actually were able to speak to them about it in a way other than, well, God says it's bad, then maybe you'd be able to reach them. But because they don't believe in God, even if it's a good way for you to come to that conclusion, it's not a good way for them to come to that conclusion. And so we lose them.
that way they tune out. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can see what you're saying. I mean, it's I remember, and I'm old enough to remember where back.
Sorry. That's,
Yeah, believe me, I laugh at how old I am too when I sometimes think
it's
about
a
it.
reflex.
No, I mean, dude, go right ahead. Look, you're the one with the soundboard. I'm just sitting here, just doing my thing. No, I'm old enough. I'm old enough to remember when there was how shall I put this? A reintroduction of American Christianity into 20th century politics. When you had the moral majority coming along in the 1970s and throughout the 80s, and then
Mm-hmm.
its influence waned in the 90s and into the 2000s, it was still there.
Yeah.
And and it was a reaction to what they saw coming out of 50s and 60s political liberalism. And you had many famous individuals in that movement. Probably the one that stands out to most people in their memories, the late Dr. Jerry Falwell. And I think you're right. I mean, somewhere along the way, there was, I won't say misunderstanding, but a missed opportunity to say, okay, we don't agree on everything, but I agree with you enough that the things that are going on culturally and politically in the country are such that, all right, I'm willing to stand with you.
Right.
The other things, we can have those discussions when it's all said and done.
Exactly.
But, for now, let us, stand shoulder to shoulder together. I mean, probably the most recent example, one of the more recent examples that I still think about and I find fascinating. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA organization every so often will hold a conference out in Arizona. And this was about, I guess maybe 2 years ago. And someone strolled through the halls of that conference. They had signed up, they'd paid the fee, they'd done everything else. But when Charlie Kirk realized who it was, they escorted them out. Now, by chance, do you happen to know who it was?
Was this Shapiro?
No, it wasn't Shapiro.
Okay, I remember something similar about that with him, but no, I don't remember.
Does the name Brandy Love mean anything to you?
I've definitely heard it, but I can't place it.
Porn star.
Well, I figured that.
Okay, all right.
But like, who is she?
Okay. Here's the backstory. From everything that I understand, and this is from watching interviews that she's done with, for example, Chrissy Mayer. Brandy Love, her stage name, is about as conservative as anybody else, except in one area of her life, some people would argue, and that is her profession.
Right.
She's into porn. She, is an adult film star. Now, and again, I could be misstating some of the details on this, and I hope I'm not, but my memory's pretty good on this. She was not there as Brandy Love. She used her real name. Okay. She was not promoting her industry. She wasn't promoting her job. She wasn't anything else. She wasn't trying to cause a scene. She wasn't, trying to be untoward. She wasn't trying to be provocative. She was simply there to listen, to hear, and in her own way, to stand in solidarity with her fellow conservatives.
And they kicked her out of the event?
Yep.
I guess I didn't hear about this. What reason did they give that, like, oh, we just don't want this type of person here?
More or less. And again, if I'm misstating that, I apologize to everybody, but in my recollections, that's how it went down. Now,
makes sense.
The debate can always be had about the adult film industry, its effects on men and women, on society in general. Fine. Have that debate all you want to. But here's a person of their own volition who came to this event, wanted to listen, wanted to hear, wanted to stand in solidarity because the values, or some of them, most of them, probably the better way to say it, are things that she's agreeing with. And because of who she is and what she does, they kicked her out.
Yep.
This, to me, I'm looking back on it going, guys, okay, you don't like what she does. Yeah, you don't like what she does for a living. Fine. You respect that. You didn't exactly help your cause here with a group of people that might otherwise be willing to work with you, and you just lost the opportunity. So I can understand what you're saying. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a time and place for the discussion of, the theological, the moral, the philosophical. I get it, but on the question of, can we at least agree politically with each other to work together? There are moments when we just blow that opportunity all to thunder,
Yeah. And I totally understand the passion that people have for their faith. Like that, I was that person. I completely understand that. But if you can't put that aside for a political goal, then you're going to lose. It's just that simple. So whether it's an atheist who acts by and large like a Christian, or it's a P-star, then like if you are pushing those people away, there's only, in this system, there's only one other place for them to go, and the other party already has the default people. And so if we do get somebody, especially somebody who is connected to that community, Instead of pushing her away, if you bring her in, now all the people who like her are like, oh, well, maybe TPUSA is not that bad. Oh, I hate the Republicans, but at least TPUSA, they, and that's what the conservative movement needs. It's so there's so much gatekeeping.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And your friends, I think, agree with you. If you're working together politically, it should be about political goals, not what's exactly. Yeah. Now, I do want to ask a little bit of background information. There was an interesting phrase that you used to describe your life, I guess, college and post thereafter. Militant atheist phase. I found that phrase fascinatingly interesting.
Really?
What? No. I mean, okay. So you grew up. You were born into a Catholic family. You grew up in the Methodist Church. You, in your words, fell away from organized religion. And if you don't want to answer any of these questions, you just tell me.
It's like,
okay,
I'm an open book.
So, what caused you to, like, in your words, fall away from organized religion, and how would you describe to someone militant atheist phase? That's an interesting phrase of putting it.
So, just well, we can circle back. But if you guys are at all familiar with red pill rage, this is the same exact thing, except atheism. So going back, I had, like I said, I grew up in the Catholic Church, but again, church was just kind of a thing that we had to do on Sunday. It wasn't like something I was super into. Then when I was in middle school, a bunch of stuff happened with the priest that, my mom and him had a falling out. And so we moved to a Methodist church that was a lot more laid back. And that's where I really started to get into religion. I wanted to get closer to God, and I wanted to read more of the Bible and stuff. And that's what started my journey to atheism, is actually reading the Bible. Now, at the same time, I'm in school for psychology, so I'm learning about the inner workings of the brain. I'm also looking at philosophy and seeing that, looking at how to verify that we know things. We've all heard the I think therefore I am. Rene Descartes. His whole thing was, he's like, how do I know what's true? And his thing is, it's like, let's imagine that there's an evil demon that is like, everything that I know is a lie. And so let's strip away anything that demon could be lying about. And he gets all the way down to like, I don't know that I am evil. Well, wait, I do know that I'm real because I'm the one doubting what's going on. So if I'm thinking, that means that I must exist. And that's the only thing, that. And so when you come from it at that level, then you ask a lot of the questions about, where God works in mysterious ways, or contradictions in the Bible. It stacks up, and you see, like, okay, maybe this is real, but the evidence for any other endeavor, any other question that we would have, it's not met. And that's why, there is the idea of faith being a good thing within religion, because we don't have the knowledge. And so going back to the questioning the idea of faith, now that I'm understanding how the brain works, now that I'm understanding that there's other ways to think about, we'll call it, I guess, spirituality, or just things outside of your physical body. Aside from Christianity, then I realized, like, Christianity could be true, but there's a lot of other things that could be true as well, and it doesn't seem like Christianity is true. And so when you spend 20 years thinking, hey, there's a God up there watching out for me, and when I pray to him, he hears me, and he's doing this, and then you come to the conclusion, that was all a lie, well, you're going to be kind of angry. And this bring up the red pill rage, same kind of thing. Back in the day, I was a little beta, and I learned, what you need to learn. And I realized I was, I'd been lied to by Disney movies and rom-coms and stuff. And so there was a period where I was angry that I'd been lied to. And, I wanted to, like I said, with the atheism, I want to show everybody, oh, how smart I am. I figured it out about the Bible and religion. Or when it came to the red pill stuff, I know everything about women. And then you learn more, and you take a step back, and it's essentially the Dunning-Kruger effect. You get up there and you're like, oh, I know everything. You're like, oh, wait, I don't really know that much. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I figured this out.
Okay.
So it's just the because I use that phrase militant atheist because that is how most people will see that somebody is an atheist. Most people who are atheists that you come in contact with, you have no idea that they're atheists, because they're not talking to you about religion.
Right.
And so the only time you see, oh, that's an atheist, is when there's some, there's no God, you stupid, blah, 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 blah. That's like the representative heuristic. I remember when I was a kid, I asked my dad, how come military people always have to wear their uniform? And he's like, they don't. What are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, we see them all the time. It's like, yeah, you only know they're in the military because they're wearing the uniform. That doesn't mean that other people in plain clothes are not in the military. Same thing with atheists.
Okay. Well, folks, if you just happen to be joining us, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am joined tonight by Lutch, otherwise known as the Indian Jesus, who is working his dead level best to resurrect common sense. And you know what? I can see where the effort is paying off because he's got a very nice YouTube channel. Please give him a subscription. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you give me a sub. So, I'll take it.
That like button too.
Yeah, and hit the like button, daggone. That algorithm's a tricky little thing sometimes, Let me ask you a question. You made as I was listening through your introduction video, you said you knew about the issues but didn't know anything about politics. In your mind, is there a difference between issue and politics? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, definitely. So, so for example, let's take I call it on my channel Shushmorshin. I don't know how if you care about Shushmorshin or porridge. Sometimes we'll call it, but so that issue, porridge. Okay. All right. So talking about porridge, like I, as a Christian, I had the opinion that porridge was wrong, but I didn't think about I didn't think about it any further than, oh, they said this is wrong. And so I had opinions when it comes to things like racism. Like racism is bad, sexism is bad. Like these basic issues. I was aware of how society worked on a very basic level, but in terms of how do we change this from that? If we see something we don't like, how does this work? What is the succession of power from this, that, the other? How do you like all of the maybe you'd call it civics and stuff like that? I didn't pay attention at all. Like and again, I didn't know anybody's names. I had no idea Obama was elected on the night until after somebody else told me.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you're describing something that one of my heroes when I was growing up was the legendary Christian apologist C.S. Lewis. And I love telling this story because talking about getting an education, he did. There's in his autobiography, he describes being tutored by an English atheist named William Kirkpatrick. And the first day they met each other is one of the most hysterical things you can ever imagine. So his parents take him by train to Surrey, England. And they meet Kirkpatrick there at the train station. They say their goodbyes. So there's a very young teenager in C.S. Lewis to be tutored for the next few years by Kirkpatrick. And Lewis describes it, he was trying to make cocktail conversation. So as they're walking along, he says, the scenery here in Surrey is wilder than I expected. And Kirkpatrick threw out his arm, hit him square dead in the middle of the chest, almost knocked him down, turned and gazed at him and said, "Upon, sir, what do you base the proposition that the scenery here is wild?" And Lewis was floored.
Interesting.
He's like, "Oh, I didn't know I had to base," in his mind he's thinking, "I didn't know I had to base anything on anything." Well, so now having grown up all his life in cocktail conversation, he's trying to dig his way out of this, faux pas that he's committed in front of Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick won't let it go. He's like a dog on a bone at this point. He's like, "Did you base it on eyewitness accounts? Did you base it on topographical maps? Did you base it on pictures? On what, sir?" And finally, Lewis just threw up his hands and said, "Well, I didn't base it on anything." The next thing that was said formed the basis of Lewis's education. Kirkpatrick, without emotion, looked at his new pupil and said, "Well, do you not realize then, sir, that you had nothing of significance to contribute to the conversation, and therefore you never should have said anything in the first place?"
Bingo.
And walked off and left him standing there. And Lewis was just crushed. He said, but out of that came years of this man just honing and refining my edge.
Mhm.
He said, we would argue about points just right down to the just nth degree. Kirkpatrick apparently couldn't stand it when his wife's bridge club came over because all those hens gathered together. It just drove him crazy. He said, I can't handle it. I gotta get out of here. Because this conversation is nonsensical. It doesn't get us to the truth. It doesn't do anything. He would go running out of the house when his wife's friends would come over. But that's the kind of thing. And it sounds like you went through the same thing. You knew in your mind these things are right and wrong. You didn't necessarily have a basis, and you
Right.
spent a lot of years trying to figure out what that basis ought to be.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Kierkegaard, I haven't heard that name in years. Christian existentialism. My
Yeah. And I
God.
mean, it's not like I'm super well read and can like quote this
Sure.
and that. And so it's been a while since I've actually sat down to formulate, okay, what do I think about how I should live my life? I kind of have
Yeah.
that, I kind of have that basis and have just been following that. And as things come up, I have that background, those principles that I feel like a lot of people don't have. And that I think is the core of why so many people think religion is necessary, is
Mhm.
that either they are incapable, the person who's saying religion is necessary, either they are incapable of creating their own moral structure, or they don't see the possibility. And I'm there. It might very well be that there are some people who can handle being atheists and build up their own moral structure, and maybe everybody else is just too dumb and too evil, and they need to. Maybe that's the case. And if I come to over discussions with people like you and Mike and everybody else, if I come to that conclusion, I'm willing to say, okay, I need to back off of my message of trying to not take religion away from people, but just create
Sure.
society, create a phenomenon in society where religion just happens to be less important. Maybe I'll need to back off of that and talk about, like, okay, maybe we need to talk about what is a secular Christian or something like that.
Mhm.
But I just feel like religion is the acceptance that we cannot know God any better than we do right now.
Yep.
And I just said, who? Why? What makes you think that? Because it
Mhm.
says it in a book. Like every other aspect of life in the universe, we've used the scientific method to get a better understanding. And if there is such a thing as a God, there's absolutely no reason why we think that, okay, maybe we can't completely get a full understanding of God, but we certainly can get closer. Then God works in mysterious ways. But if y'all don't want to, then that's why people are going over to the carnies, the science.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because this is starting to refresh my memory on another influence that was influenced upon me. I had a high school teacher who was in love with the late Dr. Francis Schaeffer. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard the name or not, but Schaeffer was another very famous Christian apologist of the latter half of the 20th century. And he had a very unique friendship with um, with an atheist. And how they acquired this friendship was fascinating. This atheist had a debate with another Christian apologist whose name I absolutely forget now. And actually, I don't even remember my teacher telling me the name. And this Christian apologist, they were debating a particular topic. And the debate did not go well for the atheist on any number of levels. But the Christian apologist not only won the debate, but in his own way rubbed his opponent's nose in it.
Mm.
Okay. Such that it was deflating for the atheist, to say the least. He lost the debate. It's one thing to lose a debate. It's another thing to have your nose rubbed in the fact you lost the debate. So maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks or a month later, this atheist is debating Schaeffer. Same topic, or maybe a slightly different topic. Could be. Schaeffer was gracious. They were funny. They were cordial to each other. Debate was over. Schaeffer won, by the way, at least according to most people who saw the debate. But out of it, he and the atheist just struck up this wonderful friendship. They'd have dinners together. They'd talk together. They'd hang out together. and they stayed in constant contact with each other, even though they didn't agree on a single solitary thing. Okay, Schaefer at least brought to the table the understanding. Okay, we don't agree for some strange reason. We're not there together on this. Fine, but by the same token, why can't we at least be civil to each other? And in this day and age, and it's I usually bring up this point in the realm of politics, but it's also true in most areas of life. Somewhere along the way, I think we all lost. Well, I shouldn't say we all. A significant portion of society lost the ability to just sit down and talk with somebody.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And just say, I don't agree with you, but okay, where are you at? Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me why. And then the other person be willing to say, okay, I don't agree with you either. Here's what I think. What do you think about what I think? And they just sit there and have a conversation.
What do you think caused the decline there?
Oh gosh.
Because we definitely used to be able to do that. Like that was how humans worked.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things for my part. I think there's a lot of things that go along with that. I think one is the loss of influence of Judeo-Christianity in just basic societal function. Now, here's what I'm getting at. Even though there may be people who are secular, and I'll just use that term broadly, most of their actions and behaviors are undergirded by a philosophical set of principles, usually born out of Judeo-Christianity that's been ingrained in the American consciousness over the course of 2 centuries.
Yep.
Okay. Where that influence has lessened over the years, there are certain side effects that come along with it. One of them is the loss of civility. And one of the basic, tenets of just basic Christianity is love thy neighbor. You may not agree with your neighbor, and that doesn't mean you have to condone what your neighbor does, but you love your neighbor. And in that, we lost the ability to just be able to, just basic decency, say, okay, I don't agree with you, but let's break bread together. To me, the best example of this is in the political context. One of my favorite political figures has made the statement. He said, when I got started in politics, I wanted to defeat my opponents, but I never wanted to destroy them. He said, these days, they want to do both.
Oh, yeah.
They will try to defeat you and destroy you financially, physically, by whatever means necessary, because you're evil. They can't accept the proposition, okay, we just don't agree. We'll settle it at the ballot box, and if I win, you get another crack at the apple, and if I lose, I'll get another crack at the apple. Right. But whoever wins agrees we live under this basic civil set of rules that we've established in our society. And in the context of just, having conversations, we've, by and large, there's a significant portion of American society. We just lost the ability to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. We really have.
I completely agree. And I mean, I have a certain diagnosis that I think is accurate. And I've been, I had Peter Boghossian on my show. I had Mike the other night. I had Ian Crossland from Timcast, and all these big names that I get to talk to. Like, my main thing is that I want to put this in front of them and see, like, what do you think? Because, like I said, I feel like I have the answers, and I'm humble enough to say that I could be wrong, but so far nobody's said it. And so, number one, I think, is dogma. Dogma. Whether you believe in a religion or whether you believe that a man can transform into a female, if you're not willing to question those things, then it's going to give you more reason to be negatively passionate towards those people. Now, of course, we definitely see more vitriol coming from the left to the right, but certainly it's not. It goes both
not
ways.
Exclusive. It's not exclusively one way. That's for sure. And I'm coming from a, am I as practicing in Christianity as I should be? I'll freely admit that I'm not. Do I come out of that background? Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely right. It can go the other way. It can go from good old fashioned Bible believing Christians the other way, going, you godless pagan heathen, how dare you, whatever it may be.
How dare you?
Yeah.
And how dare I? Exactly.
And so, so that's number one, is dogma, that which goes back to my motto: believe nothing, accept that anything is possible.
Mhm.
Don't take anything that you know for sure unless you actually have reason to know it. And I don't think that there's really anything besides physical reality. Like, I know that when I let go of this vape, that it's going to fall. But even when I say that, there could be some physical anomaly, once in a 12 billion years, that there's a gravity pocket and I drop it and it goes. We don't know. And so there's a reasonable amount of faith that when I drop this, it's going to fall. Oh wow, how did I know that? Because that's, every time gravity has been tested, it works that way. And if but still, I'm willing to say, okay, there could be a physical anomaly and it will be sucked up into the air. And so that's step one, is to believe nothing except that anything is possible. And that doesn't mean you don't have any things that you believe in, but always be willing to question them. And then the second and more insidious part, I think, is what I refer to as semantic obfuscation, meaning the changing of the meaning of words, or the twisting of how you use words,
Yes.
to try to change the landscape of what we are talking about. What racism used to mean was bigotry towards a person because of their skin color or their ethnicity, and now it just means bad.
Yeah.
And you see over and over and over and over people using words in a way to kind of skew the conversation in their direction because of their dogmatic belief. And I think that has just destroyed our ability to speak with people we disagree with. That's the core purpose of my whole channel, is to identify that. And hopefully I can get a little bit more specific on that as time goes on.
Oh, sure.
And then
Sure.
to find the solution.
Yeah. I mean, I am one of those that just loves and appreciate words. I love the English language. I think it is probably one of the greatest things that God ever gave man. We've gone from everything from the Venerable Bede to Chaucer to Shakespeare to T.S. Eliot, to name the 20th century writers. But I detest, with a passion, having a word that has had decades or centuries of meaning. Watch someone decouple it from its definition.
I mean, woman?
Scramble. What is a woman? Yeah. Or scramble the definition around and then recouple it to the word and say, well, this is what it means now. And like, no, it doesn't mean that. I mean, you gave the example of racism, or what is a woman. I mean, anything that we're talking about in society today, hate, or I love hate speech. That's a phrase that just sends me straight up. It's like, well, these words are hateful. Why are they hateful? Well, I don't like them. Well, that doesn't, whether you like them or not, is irrelevant, but why are they hateful? This word in and of itself doesn't have an emotion attached to it. It's just a word. How you react to it more or less determines what it is or what it does.
They're not actually offended. It's just a rhetorical tactic to gain the moral high ground. That now that you're a racist, or you're a transphobe, or you're a homo, whatever now I'm better than you. And so whatever conversation we're having, I'm justifiably looking down on you. And so don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Dude, you got free reign to roam here. I mean, go for it. I tell people all the time, here's a wide open field. Verbally run through it as much as you want to. We'll rein it in when we need to.
Well, yeah, I mean, Soil to Soul in her comment about knowing the limits of human knowledge. It's that's the analog, or the reflection of the leftists, who, because of they believe that whether it's trans or feminism or racism or whatever the case may be, because they believe so strongly and so passionately, they feel justified in demonizing you and saying, like you were saying before, not simply that you disagree and you still happen to be a good person, but if you disagree, you are evil. And that creates the imbalance. And too many of us have, for too long, have fallen into that and have been playing the game on their terms.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's so much so that and shout out again to Peter Boghossian, but he pointed out when I gave this to him to critique that he's like, well, you got to be careful because obfuscation is a very specific thing. That is a conscious thing to obfuscate the semantics, and it's been going on so long that now there's two levels. There's the people who know they're BSing you. Those are the people who are obfuscating the semantic obfuscation. But then there's the next generation of people. Like just last night, we covered Libs of TikTok talking to Taylor Lorenz, the Washington Post journalist that doxed her. And the question came up, is she one of these people who is like we saw the misuse of words? And the question was, is she doing the obfuscation? Or is she the one who now has been affected by this? And I think the phrase that came up was linguistic creep, where the obfuscated words that she's heard, now that's her real understanding. So she's not being nefarious in calling something racist or this, that, or the other. Oh, yeah. She legitimately believes that if you're on time, then it's a sign of whiteness or some crazy whatever.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's sad. I mean, every so often, and this is in the political context, I will watch an interview that someone does with U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I think it was CNN was doing an interview with her just after the Alabama Supreme Court came out with their ruling that said a embryo is a human being. And for about the next she gets asked about this. And for the next 5 minutes, she's sitting there going on about it, which fine. She's been asked the question. She has a right to answer or not answer. It's up to her. But some of the phrasing she's using in this is like patriarchal theocracy. And I'm sitting here going, huh? What? I mean, it's reached the point where there is such a divide in language. There's no common language anymore. Because I'm sitting here listening to her. She's dropping these phrases. Now, granted, I'm older than she is, and I grant that I'm not the most socially adept person or up on everything or theory going on in the world. But when it gets to the point that you're dropping stuff that I've never even heard of, and when you say it, it sounds like, you took mashed potatoes and peas, smashed them together, and you think you've created a new form of food, that's a problem, okay? And more often than not, that is what I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing. She's taking one word, another word, smash them together. She's got a new phrase, and out of that, here comes a philosophy. And I'm sitting here going, no, you haven't created a new philosophy. You're just full of crap.
Right. And it's like, and that's where that distinction, it's important to know, is this person dumb enough to be caught up in this semantic obfuscation, or are they evil enough to purposely do it? And it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell.
Oh, but, I absolutely agree.
But I'll throw the other side at you, because Christians, you're guilty too. I say this all the time.
Oh Lord, we've been guilty for 2,000 years. What are you throwing at us now?
Think of your answer to this. All of you guys in the chat and from Porch Conservative, think of your answer to this question, and don't say it out loud. What is God? Okay, got it.
Okay.
On Sunday, when you go to church, because you're all great Christians, you're definitely going to go to church. Keep that answer in your mind. Then, when you go sit in your pew, go turn to the person to your left and ask them the same question. I guarantee you will get a similar but different answer.
Okay.
Not only that, but you turn to your left and ask yet another person, and you will get a third answer still.
Okay.
God is bad at being a word. Words, the purpose of words are to take my thoughts and put them into your mind. If I say, I believe in God, that doesn't transfer any representation of what's in my mind to your mind. All that means is you take your representation of what you think God is and attach my belief to it. What I actually believe, you have no idea. And I mean, obviously, I happen to think of as God. You don't know. And I mean, that's not to say that, again, not to say that you shouldn't be a Christian or this, that, but it's important to understand that when there's this united front of people who believe in God, people who are Christians, people who are of Christ. I mean, the third one would probably be the most specific, but even still, it's a much wider group than it's portrayed to be. And so that's again, going back to the secular part of the secular conservative, we have to realize that even though you guys all say this comes from God, this comes from God, this comes from God, when you say it comes from God, you mean this. When he says God, he means this. And even though there's overlap, you mean different things. And so you aren't as united as you believe. And so then when you present this united front against people like me, who don't believe in any dogma, but still have the Judeo values, Enlightenment values, classical liberal values, whatever you want to call them, then you're creating a divide. And even if that video that you were talking about, I shouted again to Mike Harlow. He hooked me up with the Walk Away campaign. So I did that video for them. And even in the comments on that video where I'm explicitly saying, look, guys, you're going to push people away, there's a bunch of comments saying, oh, you'll find God and you'll do this and you'll do that and you'll do. Guys, you're missing the point. You go and have your God. Go have your God. But leave it out of politics if you want to win. If you believe that the values you get from God are the ones that should be in society, then you have to keep that part of it out of the political discussion.
All right, but let me play. This is going to be an ironic phrase. Let me play the devil's advocate for a moment.
Please do.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so let's say theoretically and philosophically that we have won the battle. Okay, however that is defined politically. Okay. So now the victors get the joy of making the laws. If we're leaving God out of the discussion of politics, then on what basis are we making laws? Because it seems to me, I mean, and this is a tension that's always going to be there. It's a tension that's there every time a law gets made. I always find it fascinating when someone says to me, well, you can't legislate morality. I look at them and I'm almost arrogant enough to laugh at them.
I would.
I do my best to restrain that impulse. And the reason that I do is this is something that I think I figured out a long time ago, or at least this informs my thinking for what it's worth. Laws, by their very existence, are statements of morality.
Mm-hmm.
We have laws against theft. Why? Because we are told, thou shalt not steal. We have laws against murder. Or go ahead.
So let's back up and what do we mean when we say morality? What is it that you mean when you say morality?
A system of beliefs that define principle of how people should live with each other.
Okay,
that is based upon something above and beyond, higher than ourselves.
Okay, I would definitely agree with that. But the way you presented your original question implies that you need a God in order to have that morality. And I disagree with that statement. Shout out to Sam Harris, who's gone way off the TDS train. But 10, 15 years ago, he was on point. And he wrote a book called The Moral Landscape. And as an atheist, when we are saying morality, if we are not talking about the spectrum that is the greatest well-being for all human beings possible versus to the other side being the greatest suffering for all people possible, if we're not talking about that spectrum, then I don't know what you mean when we're talking about morality. So I think you are talking about that spectrum, correct? That good would be closer to the most well-being for all people possible, and bad or evil would be the most suffering for the most people possible.
All right, I can at least concede part. I'll concede most of part of that. Yeah.
Great. So now, without a God, without dogma, we have a rule set, or we have a structure. Just like the game of chess. Chess is arbitrary. We made up chess. We completely made it up out of thin air. That does not mean that there are not moves in chess that are objectively good or objectively bad. Once we decide on the rules, then we can work within that framework. Okay. And so if we all agree that that's what morality is, we want to get as close to the greatest well-being that as many people as possible can have, and we want to get as far away from the worst suffering for the most people, as long as we are in that framework, then we can have objective morality. We can say, yes, this gets us closer to well-being. This gets us closer to suffering. And that gets us closer to well-being is good. That gets closer to suffering is bad or evil.
Okay.
No God needed.
We'll disagree. We'll agree to disagree. And
okay. But where in what I just said, what is missing that God's needed for?
Here's the problem. Well, all right. Let's just take the question of God out of it for a second. I swear I'm not trying to get into a debate with you. I'll counter with one point, at least from my perspective. Okay, we are all trying to get to the greatest level of good for all people. Okay, fine. Now, let's just assume for a moment that you have $100 cash in your wallet and 3 credit cards. And I determine that my greatest level of good for me is to knock you on the head, take your wallet, clean you out of cash, take your credit cards, go down the street, spend as much as I want. You would come back to me and say, "But wait, this is not for the greatest good. I have been
Right.
robbed." I,
Right.
on the other hand, would look at you and go, "Well, I've determined that this is for my greatest good. I have met my need."
Right. But we
But
didn't say for one person.
hold on. But in order for you to be able to say that the action that I have taken is not for the greatest good, or maybe not for your good, you automatically, by default, have to appeal to something higher than you and I to make that determination,
Right.
don't you?
Right. So we're not talking about what's best for you personally. We're talking about what's best for all of humanity. A society or a humanity that accepts theft and violence is not a good society. So you would simply be wrong. You could think that you're doing a moral thing and be wrong. If you think you're doing a moral thing and you're hurting people, most of the time, in most contexts, you're just wrong. People can be wrong. You can think that putting your king to get captured or checked in the first, you can think that that's a good chess move. You'd just be wrong. And so you could think that because I feel happy in the moment when I punch this person and take their wallet, that's good. You'd just be wrong.
Okay.
And objectively, that does not get us closer to the greatest well-being of all people.
Okay. And I'll end it with this and get back to my questions that I pre-planned for. I'll agree to disagree with you, and I'll end it with this, and then I'll get back on my train of questioning. Is that you're saying it's wrong? Well, my argument is, okay, in order for something to be wrong, there has to be an objective standard to point to be able to say that an action therefore is wrong.
The spectrum. That's the objective standard.
But what if we're not on the same spectrum?
But again, the what is good for humanity is not up for debate. Like again, we can debate it, but whatever is the best,
humanity might debate that point.
Okay, but that doesn't change what is reality. We can debate whether there is a God or there's not a God, but whether or not there is a God is what it is. There either is a God or there is not a God. We could debate it all night and day, but the reality of whether or not there is a God is the same regardless of what I think or what you think. There either is a God or there's not a God. Doing something either moves humanity closer to the greatest well-being or it does not. And we can scientifically, objectively look at how that works. And even on a personal level, just to tie bone on, even on a personal level, from pure selfishness, I can get to a place of altruism. I'm a human being. I don't like getting punched in the face. I can imagine that other people probably don't like getting punched in the face. And if I punch people in the face, they are more likely to want to punch me in the face. So I'm not going to punch people in the face. Now we have an objective reason to stay away from violence without the need for dogma or God.
Again, I will agree to disagree with you. I will simply say this. I'll simply say this. That all of that working from the assumption that all people agree on the same spectrum as to what is good and bad. But the moment that they disagree with each other about what is good and bad, in order to settle the debate, they have to appeal to something higher than themselves. And I'm not trying to get the last word, but I'll just end it right there. Now, see, folks, we had a debate. We're not at each other's throat.
Look how that works.
I'd still go out and have dinner with this guy, you know. And now this question I'll throw in for the humor of it. She may hate herself later for asking us, but who made the rules of chess?
I don't know. But does that matter? It doesn't matter because now we know the rules are this, that, and that. And objectively, there are moves that, this is a bad move or this is a good move.
Exactly.
We certainly don't need God for chess. I mean, maybe you disagree with that. But
well, it depends
we'll move on.
Depends on how badly you're losing the chess game is whether or not you start praying.
Fair enough.
Anywho, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I am joined by the Indian Jesus. out on social media. He is on Twitter. He is on YouTube. He's on any number of places. And in the description for this live stream tonight, I did the guy a solid, and I put everything he's got out there. So go check him out. Sub to his channels. Please help him wherever possible.
Very much appreciate it.
Getting back to my line of questioning. This is one of those moments I got on a philosophical tangent and then went off. Okay, I want to go back to something of your personal philosophical and political history. You made an interesting statement, and I always find this fascinating because I keep getting the feeling that the America First crowd and the Bernie Bros could get together more. Well, let me rephrase that. It might very well be they'd agree in principle what the issues are. In practice, how you solve them is where the fault line comes in. But you made a fascinating statement that when you started your dive into the political pool, you started out with MSNBC, CNN, and Fox.
Yep. I thought I was getting the full story.
Yes.
Well, but if I could jump in, what do you think about, a normie having that thought that, most people just watch one. I'm going to watch all three and get the full. What do you think about how reasonable it is for somebody to come to that conclusion?
I think that is a very reasonable conclusion because the normie the average person is trying to live their life. They're trying to pay their bills, keep a roof over their head, put food on the table, either for themselves, their loved one, their children, whomever. And they don't necessarily have time to dive into the deep end of the political pool. And bless their hearts, I'm actually envious of them because, it's kind of like that line from an old Don Henley song, the more I know, the less I understand. That's kind of how I feel these days. It's like, the more I know, the more I'm like, I don't get it. Why? Just why? But, for the average person thinking to themselves, oh, well, okay, I'll watch CNN, the most trusted name in news. I'll go to MSNBC. Yeah, I'll go to MSNBC. I'll go to Fox because they're obviously not CNN or MSNBC. And I'll get a balanced view of what's going on in the world. And I don't blame the normie for that because bless their heart, right. It's a perfectly natural assumption. The problem becomes when they realize, or I don't know what color of pill it is that I'm about to describe, but when they get that pill down their throat and they realize, oh crap, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox are all the same, just slight gradations of difference, and the slightness is just, is just very, very little. And yes, Mr. Watson, there's a reason I call you the professor, and this is one of the proofs of that.
There you go.
On the song where it came from. So
nice.
Yeah,
I meant to mention, whenever I am on screen, every single donation or super chat comes with a treat for my dog Morty here. So, and he's hungry. So, guys, get those super chats in, as you're saying.
Well, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate that. I am not quite as good a grifter as Harlow is, but I'm working my way to it. But anyway, I love your soundboard. Oh my God, you're making
so much fun.
You're making me want to go get one of the things.
Order it now. Order it now.
For $19.99 plus shipping and handling. You can have from Ronco Records. If you get that reference, you're definitely cool enough to be one of my friends. The Bernie Bros. So to go back to answer your question, I have nothing against the average person doing that. It's when they realize there's no difference, it becomes a question: what do you do next?
Yes.
Do you stay with the 3-letter networks, or do you venture out? And this sounds like it's what happened to you. You became a Bernie Bro, and you said the way you phrased this, man, I've had political regret in my life. But what you said, voting for Hillary Clinton is the most shameful thing I have ever done.
Well, let me even make it because like I said, Harlow asked me to do that video for the Walk Away campaign, so I want to keep it relatively clean. And I told you that I had a bout with addiction, and so usually when I say that, it's like I spent 5 years as a drug addict, and still the most shameful thing I've ever done is cast a vote for that evil woman, and that's why I just said I'm.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm wowing at like not even drug addiction was as bad
nope,
as voting for Hillary Clinton.
nope.
That's something. I I have never heard anybody express such disdain for voting for Queen Hillary as what you just described. So go on. I'm
Well, the thing is, it's more about the fact that I let other people, regardless of was it mainstream media or anybody else, it was the fact that I let other people bully me and feel scared like I had to vote against someone. And so I haven't
right.
voted for Trump, and that's because in 2020 I was still, a little. I was definitely, I definitely walked away from the from the left, but I was just scared that like I very soon after my Hillary vote I realized how bad that was, and so I just want to stand back, and so I decided I never ever ever will vote against someone ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I've always found, and feel free to disagree with me if you want. I've always said that you cannot build a political campaign on the idea of voting against someone because people, regardless of the level of political sophistication, they want to be for something. They want to be affirmative. They want to, hopefully rise above higher and better than where they currently find themselves right now. And they put right or wrong, they put hopes and aspirations in the person they're voting for, not necessarily who they're voting against. And that's why I wonder if the current election that's about to take place in November is going to be, you've got to vote against this guy or you could vote for an alternative. And that's going to be a fascinating marginal test. It really will. And before we go further, Mr. Indie Film, thank you so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I genuinely appreciate that.
And of course, a treat for my boy Morty. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Morty is chomping down back there. But if you weren't
He's
chomping
coming.
down, he'd give you a woof 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 woof, which translated means thank you, thank you. Now it's 2015, 2016. You are living with the shame of having voted for Hillary.
Yep.
And I'm saying that somewhat tongue in cheek, but I'm not too far off the mark from the sound of it.
No,
And then something interesting happened. You said your full red pill moment with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
let me set it up for people.
Sure.
What happened in that episode, either during those days in Wisconsin or afterwards to Kyle Rittenhouse? What was it about all of that that made you say, "Oh crap! Okay, I'm ready to swallow the red pill. I'm ready to take whatever step it is, intellectually, ideologically, whatever, and I'm ready now to move to a certain point."
Yeah, so I mean, definitely before that, I had been moving in that direction. But I was still, I still had that hangover from, Trump he's mean and he's racist and he's this and he's that. And for the most part, I'd shed those dogmatic beliefs, but I assumed that it was still reasonable to want this idea of somebody presidential. And I don't remember the exact timing, but I think it was recently before the Rittenhouse stuff, where Trump was dealing with North Korea, and he had that quote where he's like, if they do whatever, they're gonna meet a fire and fury. And I was like, yo, what are you doing? This is the North Korean dictator. And it was my dad who was like, he knows what he's doing. And I was like, he cannot possibly know that that's gonna work. Can he? And so that was kind of, a moment where I wasn't fully red pill, but I was starting to accept it. And then when I, the entire thing about that whole thing, from the fact that people didn't know that Jacob Blake had, that the cops had been called on him. They didn't know that there was a knife in the car. They didn't know anything about the case. Then there was all these riots in the midst of all lockdown. At the time, I'm still working at Petco, and as an essential worker, with all these crazy cat ladies coming with their nasty whatever, and I gotta wipe it down because we don't know what's what. And but yet these people could just go out, and it's a public health emergency that they don't go out. And then you see the trial, and I watched the trial from start to finish, and there's still people who believe that Kyle killed black people. And there was just so much rhetoric, so many lies. I was like, no, guys, like I'm with you. I don't like Trump, but I don't like MAGA. I don't like any, but like, trust me, this is legit. And they were like, nope. I was like, oh, y'all are purposely foolish. You're purposely. It's not that you're confused. You're evil. And so I was like, all right. I like I said, I still don't love the GOP. I think there is a lot of work to be done into making that America First MAGA thing what is I guess the core of the Republican Party. I still think the GOP has a very strong hold on the actual workings in Washington. But there's a culture that's changing, and being able to see, number one, that there is that split, that when you start hearing conservatives talk about rhinos, then you see that they're moving away from that GOP that I hated as the religious right that I hated as a kid, but they're not going to the debauchery of the left. And so this must be the only correct position, or the correct direction, at least.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, because you just brought up something that just jogged something in my mind. The lockdowns, the doublespeak, the totalitarianism of it all, the fascism, if you want to get right down to use that word, Rittenhouse, the Summer of Love, everything that's happened since then. If you had to give it on a scale, 0 being everybody in America, all 330 million people, are just comatose, brain dead, and not even paid attention to anything that's happened in the past 5 years, versus 10, the entire American people in 2024 have gotten the spirit of 1776 all over again. Where is American society in your mind as far as being awake to what's going on and ready to do something about it?
So I'm going to clarify what you're asking. Are you asking how many people are there, or how many people were woken up by lockdown and stuff like that?
Let's just do both.
Okay, so
let's take it both ways.
So how many people are already there? So that's definitely going to be a larger percentage, because there was people who were already there before lockdowns. So out of the entire population, I would say, if I had to put a number on it, there's probably a solid 40% who are, let's call it 35%, who are strongly in favor of whatever the MAGA America First movement is doing, separate from the GOP. They may also like the GOP, but specifically talking about that.
Okay.
In terms of people who were woken up, I think I would say 20% of the 35% probably woke up since 2020. I would say the overwhelming majority of people who are part of this new right came as of if not 2017, definitely 2020.
Okay, I can agree.
Leah agrees. There you go. Leah knows what's good.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I've said for the longest time, we are reaching an inflection point, albeit I think for different reasons. From my perspective, we're reaching an inflection point ideologically and generationally. And I'll put this in the context of Republican politics, because just for the record, full disclosure, I'm a recovering Republican. I don't go to as many meetings as I should, but when I do, I sit down in a chair with a circle full of people who have old Reagan buttons on their jackets, or whatever, and I'll go, "Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a recovering Republican," and the group calls out, "Hi, Brian." Um, as a recovering Republican, there is a definite split ideologically in the side of the Republican Party, and it's becoming more and more pronounced. McCarthy's gone. McConnell has announced that he's stepping down as leader. McDaniel is out
Finally.
of the chair of the
Yep.
RNC. And although there is a sizable establishment Republican presence in the mechanics of the party, more and more you see it moving toward a Josh Hawley, J.D. Vance, Matt Gaetz style of conservatism. And guys like McConnell in that era are like, y'all are nuts. I don't understand you people. And it's like, yeah, you can see the friction. You know?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like, it's like the piston has no oil to grease the gear to keep everything moving. So you got that going on. You also have generational change in that, we're reaching a point where this election, regardless of who wins in 2024, the next set of candidates that are coming up behind them are going to be in their 50s and 60s. You're not going to have the generation of Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Nancy Pelosi or that.
Thank God.
I can't disagree with you there, brother. I really can't. But yeah, I think it's a fascinating time to be alive for so many different reasons, and not just because of politics. Politics is, it's nice. It's not what makes us who we are, but it's sort of a reflection of what we are, or maybe that's a better way to say it. But
I don't think a lot of people realize that. I mean, specifically talking on the left, I think that there is a lack of personality. There's a lack of who are you? Like, who are you? What do you do? What is you? And it turns into I'm a non-binary this, or I'm an activist for this, or it all drives back to politics. And again, I think that's a purposeful thing that they injected every area with this leftist ideology to get that upper hand, to make it seem like, even though these ideas are insane, it's what most people believe. I heard something a long time, I don't even remember the context, but if you think about the idea of, if you had never seen a giraffe before and then you saw a giraffe, you'd be like, well, that's a weird looking thing. But because you learned about them when you were a kid, you just get used to it. And that's precisely and exactly what is happening with, for sure, the Gen Zers and a lot of millennials as well, that it just, the Gen Xers and older, the semantic obfuscation was heavy, and now the linguistic creep has hit them, and they think, oh no, that is really racist. It's homophobic. It's transphobic. It's wrong. And if you are on the wrong side of history, you're evil, and all of that kind of stuff. And I can attest to it, because I was in that mindset. They got me there, and that's the scariest part. That I think I'm pretty smart. And I was smart enough to get out of it.
I'm very much, even though we don't agree necessarily on everything, I'm very much enjoying this conversation. I've been looking forward to this ever since I ran into you and Harlow having that chat one night. I was like, yeah, we got to sit down and like chew the fat. We got to get together on this thing.
Hell yeah.
So if you're stopping by and you're wondering, who are these two gentlemen? Well, for my part, I'm Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. My guest tonight is Lutch, otherwise known as the Indian Jesus, doing his dead level best to resurrect common sense or bring about its second coming. We are on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and thank you to everybody who's been sending out tweets, Gettrs, Gabs, Facebook posts, wherever you may be on social media. God bless you. Thank you very much for the super chat. Morty back there is very happy, and I'm not going to say I'm not either. Let's bring it in, start to bring it toward the landing pad. You made a statement in your intro video to your channel, and I find this fascinating, especially given that you're a former Bernie bro. You believe that no, you're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. Oh, wait a minute. Now I got, before I get to this question, I just saw this.
Vermont 23 never seen it.
You've never seen
I've never seen it. I'm aware of what it is. There's a real quick. There's a big gap, because I have immigrant parents, so they came here about 40 years ago. So like 70s, 80s stuff that most of you would have heard from your parents. I missed out on that stuff. So I just,
Let,
I've never
let,
seen
let
Star Wars, never seen Lord of the Rings, never seen Terminator, never seen well, no, we did see RoboCop because we do movie
Okay.
nights in my Discord server, but
Okay.
a lot of stuff there.
All right. Look, I'm gonna. This is old Uncle Front Porch talking here. Old Uncle Front Porch highly recommends that. First question: do you live in a wokey kind of neighborhood?
No.
You got a bunch of woke. Okay, all right, cool. Then you're not going to worry about boarding up your windows or putting up soundproof whatever before you do this. But dude, if you want to laugh your butt off, you really got to watch Blazing Saddles. It may not be Mel Brooks' best work, but good grief, it's one of his funniest movies. Anyway, you made the statement that a MAGA, America First, may very well be the only thing that saves the United States. Given and I said I found the statement remarkable, given that you're a former Bernie bro, and I heard that and I went, "Whoa,
What?
yeah, yeah." That was probably one of my reactions at the moment I heard it. You want to explain that one? Because, like I say, being a former Bernie bro in 2015 16, and 8 years later, you're saying, "Hey, man, we got to get on this MAGA thing because this is going to save the country." How do you get there?
I mean, I don't think it's a far stretch. I mean, when Bernie was running, he was saying open borders are going to make your country poor. He was speaking to the working class. Remember the big I guess just kind of putting a really big circle around it. It was Trump versus the establishment, and Trump represented us, and the establishment represented the elites. And while Bernie was still there, it was Bernie and Trump representing outside, being on the outside, and then there was establishment. And so, even though I wasn't smart enough, strong enough, whatever it was, to be able to see that connection, that okay, I liked Bernie, and even today, I'm glad that Bernie was not the president, especially since Trump won. But so at that point, thinking Bernie was going to be the best option, then if I had been a little bit more well-read, a little bit stronger in understanding how the culture of politics works, then I think it's a very easy jump to go from this outsider to that outsider. And especially when you were in that position and you learn more about it, and it's like, well, I mean, Bernie's an outsider, but he's not really he's still a lifelong politician. And like I said in that video, when I was in 7th grade, I was listening to anti-flag CDs. I have an older brother who was like a punk, like exactly what you think of a real punk. And so this anti-establishment, anti-authority, that was always part of me. And with Bernie, it was a matter of a softer, more again 2015 liberal approach, and Trump was just too brash for me to see that doesn't matter. Like, yes, he's saying mean words, but these people over here are starting wars and stuff. I just wasn't able to see that. And once you are, I don't think that's very confusing at all. And in fact, I think there was a lot of people, especially in 2020, who were in 2016 Bernie fans who voted for Trump in 2020 for that exact reason.
Yeah. I find it fascinating. It's really, to me, Trump is just a whole myriad of contradictions. I mean, I'll give you an example, and I think you'll appreciate this. I live in West Virginia, which most people would argue, and probably so based on statistics, from a per capita standpoint, is probably not one of the most prosperous states financially for individual residents of where I live. But there is a bond between the folks of my state and Trump. In 2 elections, they've given him like 65, close to 70% of the vote each time.
Wow.
And no one can figure out what it is about a billionaire from Queens and people in West Virginia that they just so get down with this guy. And I think part of it, and if you have never talked to her, I'll give you somebody I'd love to see you get on your channel. I think, because I'm going to try and do it. One of us is going to get her on there, that's for sure. Selena Zito, legendary writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Washington Examiner, and she has You want to know what she does when she really wants to know what's going on?
Tell me.
She drives around Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, northeastern Ohio, down into the panhandle of West Virginia, and does a loop, because to her, that's her community. She grew up Italian American in Pittsburgh area, and she'll go to every little town. She'll hang out in every diner. She'll hang out and just talk to people.
Should be a woman of the people.
And she's the one that came up with the very famous expression: Trump's supporters take him seriously, but they don't take him literally. People who don't like Trump, people who don't like Trump, take him literally, but they don't take him seriously.
Bingo. That's absolutely right. I just did a stream with a liberal friend. And it was meant to be like, we're going to watch a Biden speech and then we're going to watch a Trump speech and like try to highlight that thing. Because I do think you're spot on. It's the level of quote unquote conspiracy. And so it's like, if you're willing to say like, oh, well, obviously he was joking, like with the thing of bleach. It's like, it's very clearly, if you're not trying to twist his words in the worst possible way, like, yeah, he's not very articulate, but what he was saying is that bleach kills germs on contact. Is there something like that, meaning that accomplishes that same thing, that can be used in the body? If he was telling you to drink bleach, he would just said, "Hey, bleach." And so it's a matter of the find people on both sides. If you're willing to look at the full clip, then it's a matter of believing what people tell you versus finding out for yourself and giving that grace, which is another one of the values that I think is very important for the American identity, that we don't need Christianity, that grace is part of it. If you give the grace to somebody like Trump to be like, all right, I get what you mean. I mean, and given the grace to Biden as well. If you check out that stream, I did try to be very fair, but it's just a matter of, well, they said it, the court said it, or the scientist said it, or the politician said it, or whoever, so it must be right. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
You can't fathom that maybe somebody somewhere might be corrupt. There's nobody corrupt except in politics except Trump. That's your position?
Trump, yeah.
It's like that. That don't make no sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, as we're starting to bring it in for a landing, let me ask you a question, and I'm not going to hold you to this. Come November, what do you think happens? I mean, not even necessarily with the presidential election, just in general. Where's the country going? Because to me, we are at a dividing point. I mean, I think we've pulled every mulligan out of the golf bag and used it, because it's kind of like we're down to, okay, guys, we either get serious and fix some of this stuff, or in X number of years, we don't have a country.
I agree.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm not even talking about the politics of November 24. In your opinion, where's the country headed?
Well, I think that, we talk about the pendulum swinging, right? I think that the pendulum is still moving to the left, but if you think about an actual pendulum, that when it reaches we looked it up and I still forget the word, fulcrum or whatever it is, the apex or whatever, it reaches the apex on either side. And so as it reaches as far as it's going to go, it slows down. And so I think, if the pendulum were in the middle, it's swinging to the left, but it's near the peak. So it's slowly inching towards the peak, and then it's going to come back the other way. And I think it's people like us who are against the GOP rhino politics that are like, let's wait in the middle and catch it right here. Like, obviously that's an ideal, but I am an idealist. I believe that, we should have this is the ideal world. Purposely putting my hand off camera. This is our ideal world. That's utopia. We're not going to get there, but we can certainly get here. We can certainly get, as close to that as possible. And if we don't know what the ideal is, then we can't go there. So that being said, I think the reason that it's so important that that Trump is part of this is that cultural factor. I don't think that Trump being in office is going to, change things drastically.
Right.
I think all it's going to do is halt the left, which arguably is what the right has always only done. But like you said, we're at a crucial point where we need to have a moment to figure out, okay, this era of going woker and woker and woker and woker is reaching its tipping point. We've known it's a house of cards, but they built it damn well. It will fall. We just need the time to figure out, okay, how is it going to fall, and what do we want to do when all the cards are laid out, and what are we going to rebuild with it? So, I mean, if Trump makes, I mean, I think I just heard that they took they took Trump off the ballot in Illinois. Again, that still has to go to the Supreme Court, but I think we're going to see a lot of unrest, let's say, over the summer. If he's taken off, and if he's not taken off, I think it could be a little bit calmer, but definitely, as we approach, it's gonna get wild. I don't know what is gonna happen, but certainly, like he said, because of the fact that it's such a crucial tipping point where either America is going to continue or America is starting its downturn. That is genuinely what I believe of this election, and so that's why I say that even though Trump is not some savior who we get him in and we're good, it's just that the establishment, whether it's Nikki Haley or Joe Biden or anybody else, is so detrimental that we have to stop that and at least take a pause and figure out how we move forward.
Yeah, I'm going to put this comment up on here because this is something that I think is fascinating going forward. And I absolutely agree with this. I mean, to me, Trump is not the America First movement. He's the reflection thereof.
Right.
He just happens to be at the tip of the spear. But I think coming behind him is a fascinating array of individuals with the ability to far more articulate what it is are the principles of this movement. That, I mean, you're going to have a J.D. Vance. You're going to have a Vivek Ramaswamy.
There you go. Shout out to Dave. You got it right as I was about to say it. Yes, Vivek is the one. I would so much rather have him been the front runner. And I wish he would have stayed in just in case, like if he is out, then the only options are Biden and Haley. Like,
great.
You're going to tell me that people wouldn't vote for Vivek over Nikki Haley? Come on.
Great. My choices are President Soft Serve, which refers more to the condition of his brains than how he likes his ice cream. So my choices are my choices are Soft Serve and Soft Serve in heels. Great.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's to me one of the more fascinating things as well is that, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you right now, my choice for Veep is Vance. But then again, I'd have not an ounce of problem with Vivek as the Veep if for no other reason I want him in a debate with Kamala Harris.
Oh, that would be epic. I didn't even think of that. Oh my God, I need to see that.
Gold. I would sell tickets online for that.
Right?
And make them mint.
Yeah, I'm with Dave. Trump Vivek 24 and Vivek Donald 28 and 32. I love that. Maybe Don Jr., but either way.
Or Byron. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a whole interesting group of people after this election.
I do think So the Soul makes a great point that there's so much baggage with Trump. And that's why I preferred Vivek. But there's so much baggage with Trump. And we understand that he is a symptom, but other people don't. And so when we can get him out of the picture, and I don't mean, not voting for him, like we need him right now, but once we have gotten everything that we can get politically out him and move on, that is when whatever America First is going to be, that is our time. And so right now it's just, we got to hold back the left so that we can figure out what our next move is.
Well, and the other thing too is you can't just elect one man to the executive branch and think that's going to solve your problems. You have got to get philosophically up and down in the Congress, in your local governments, in your state legislatures, etc. You've got to get people of that mindset, and that way you can build something, because in the end, local government is the way to go. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've got to pay attention to what's going on in Washington, if for no other reason to protect ourselves, which is an awful thing to say about your government, but it's true. But yeah, I think it's a fascinating time to be alive. So I'll tell you what, let's bring this thing in. Where can people find you on social media? What can they do to support your efforts? And if they want to hear more about what you're doing, be it videos, live streams, whatever, where can they go to find you, my man?
So I am, of course, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of Common Sense. You can find me at the Indian Jesus Official on YouTube. My socials at Indian Jesus off like official, and I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I drop clips every single day, trying to bring us together, get us to understand that indeed we do have differences, but we can get along and we can fix this country, and we can definitely fix a political discourse. But we have to we have to do our part. I promise that I will do my part. I will be here. I will talk about what I have to talk about. I will say what you don't want to say, what you're afraid to say. All I need is for you to show up, you to be part of the conversation. And hey, unfortunately, the world is not free, and money is part of the world. So if you can, then donations are amazing. But really, just being part of the conversation, being there, present for the conversation, and getting people to understand we're doing something. We're doing something real. And if you can do that, then we're much better off.
Oh, I wholeheartedly concur. I mean, to me, there's a lot of reasons to be alive right now. And I mean, one of them, particularly in what we're doing right now, you've got a channel, I've got a channel, other people have channels. And whether it's discussions about politics on social media or whether it's politics about culture with Carrie Smith, Mike Harlow, etc., Gothics, any number of different people, it is such an amazing time because free speech is still alive and well, ladies and gentlemen, suppressed on occasion by some people who don't know any better, or more to the point, they do and they don't like freedom. But freedom's going to find her way. It's like water. You can't dam it up. Sooner or later, water's going to flow.
And here's the thing too. I definitely I want to highlight again, because I hate asking for money for my channel. So I'll do it whenever I can go anywhere else, because I guarantee you, your the content creators that spend the time to do this, there's a lot that you don't see behind the scenes. And if you want what we're talking about to be real, I'm not saying you got to drop $200 every stream. If you could if half of you drop 99 cents once a week, that would fuel so much of what we could do. Now, if you can't, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, being part of this conversation, that is what really matters. But unfortunately, I wish it didn't work this way, but it does work this way. We need y'all to help us out. We're doing our part. We just need you to do yours. And if you can't, that's totally fine. But it does require money, unfortunately. So that's my piece for any content creator that you are watching. Please just think about, 99 cents. Can you afford 99 cents? Then I guarantee you they will appreciate it more than you miss it.
Look, the 99 cents won't even get you a cup of coffee these days. So you may as well do something else with it by giving it to a content creator. Let's go, Brandon. This has been, sir, this has been absolutely wonderful. You are welcome back on my electronic front porch anytime you want to come on. So you just let me know when, and we have got to do this again. And who knows, maybe one of these days we take up a philosophic topic and chew on the bone for a while.
Ooh, I'm down for that.
So am I. Folks, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I have videos. I have live streams. This coming Tuesday, we will be covering the Super Tuesday primaries around the country. There'll be more interviews next week. Oh, bless you.
Hey.
Bless you. Give Morty a treat, daggone it.
Gets a treat. Yummy, 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 yummy. There you go. Shout out to you, Pimp CT.
Bless you up in Connecticut. I genuinely appreciate it. But yeah, we'll be back Tuesday night. We're going to have our, oh, bless you. Oh, good grief. Y'all are just...
Oh, my goodness. That's what I'm
getting you back.
You don't have to be
back
rich
on my channel more often.
You don't have to be rich, guys. It's not about, that's the thing. We watch bigger channels, and I'm guilty of this. We watch bigger channels. $100, $50, and then I feel like, well, what am I going to add? It's like, no, every single cent counts. And you can spend it on Netflix and Disney that hate you, or you can spend a fraction of that on people who care about you and actually want you to be involved in what we're doing. So shout out to Dave up in CT, and of course my boy Indie Bam.
That's right. Bless your all's heart. So yes, I'll be back I'm probably going to do one more video this week before I have to travel this weekend. And I will go ahead and tease it right now. It's probably going to have to do with what's going on in Fulton County tomorrow. So be advised, that's probably going to hit sometime this weekend. And we'll be covering the Super Tuesday primaries next week. You guys are awesome. Thank you so very much. Lutch, hang around for a minute. We'll say some proper goodbyes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. God bless you, and we will catch up with you later. Have a great night, folks.